emotional pain. And one day it was like, God, I've been searching for all the answers, and it seems like the evidence mostly, it seems like the bulk of it is proving that it's the God of Christianity. When you look at the evidence, the fact that Jesus died and resurrected, the historical information, the reliability of the scriptures, the New Testament, there's a lot of stuff. There's a few books that I just want to shoot out there. Josh McDowell's books, any of his books is just excellent. Evidence That Demands a Verdict. There's about 1,000 pages, and it just quotes primary sources from early back on in the day, and it goes through all these different topics, and it proves that there is a lot of evidence to prove Christianity, the Bible, the experiences, the things that people wrote about, because there were outside sources too that actually confirmed a lot of these things. Some people tried to prove that Jesus wasn't the Christ, and in doing so they actually confirmed certain things. So it says in the Bible, for example, that the earth was darkened, and there are some people who were trying to say, oh, well, that was just a lunar eclipse or whatever it was. And so it's interesting, they actually confirmed that while Jesus was on the cross, something actually happened. So there's a lot of proof and evidence regarding these things. And the fact that out of the 12 disciples, one of them killed themselves before Jesus resurrected. Out of the other 11, 10 of them all died saying, Christianity is true. Jesus died, He resurrected, we saw Him. And they died saying, you could tell me to recant of this, I am not going to recant of it. It's the truth. We saw it with our own eyes. Okay? These people gave their life, and if they knew it was a lie, they would not have done it. So anyways, there's proof like that that says, it seems, but God, I'm having a hard time just throwing myself to this, because I feel like I need to keep stretching for truth and, having all the answers. I felt like I needed everything understood. But you know what, when I go and I turn on the light socket, I turn on the lights, I don't understand everything about the voltage and everything, but I know enough to see that this exists, and when I turn this button on, it does it. And so to this day, I don't have all the answers. But when I was praying that day, I was just, oh God. And I felt God speak into my spirit. It wasn't audible, but out of nowhere, there was this thought within my spirit that came to me, and it didn't make sense, but it said, just speak. Just speak. God, what do you mean just speak? Just open your mouth and speak, and whatever comes out, comes out. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking there's two possibilities here. Either I'm going to open my mouth and I'm going to start praying, and God's going to control my lips, and I'm going to be speaking in English, and just kind of like almost stepping out of myself almost, and just enjoying this, like, wow, God, that's very profound. Or I could just start speaking and babbling, and I was familiar with tongues. Wasn't sure what I made of it. So I knew that was another possibility. So I opened my mouth, and basically it came out for the first 20 seconds or so. I was just babbling, and it felt a little awkward at first. And I was like, I'm kind of thinking in my mind, like, what is this? And then all of a sudden I felt the presence of God fall upon me. And all of a sudden I was in tears, and I knew there was times where it was intense and I would feel God and I was in tears, and then there was times where it would let up, and I'm still speaking in tongues. I'm just stuff coming out of my mouth, and then all of a sudden God's presence back on me again. And it was probably a 10 to 15 minute experience. Thankfully I had my door closed and locked. I was at college, and it was just time with me and God, and I'm just just kind of babbling and letting God move. And after that, I felt so good. It was like, wow, I needed that. The feeling of spiritual suffocation all of a sudden ended. And it was like, oh my goodness, I haven't felt this in the longest time. Now, I didn't immediately say, hey, it's the God of Christianity. But now there was a few situations after that where God used me, and then God started speaking to me in the midst of it. There's a few situations, I won't go into the situations right now, but there's a few times where opportunities presented itself, and I ended up actually speaking to some people who needed to hear from the Lord, from someone who's Christian, who believes that Jesus is the Christ, and I ended up giving them this confirmation, speaking to them, and right after that I was thinking to myself, wow, where did that come from? Because right now I'm questioning whether Christianity is true, but that was like, God was all over me in that. So God used me a few times, and He brought to my mind the verse that says, even when we are faithless, God is faithful, because He cannot deny Himself. And I felt like the Lord say, that because I began a relationship with him, I wasn't sure about the truth at this point, but he says because I had allowed him to use me, he would be able to continue to use me, even though I wasn't sure what to make of it. And so I had these spiritual experiences, and I was like, wow, and eventually, just through some things, God gave me the release, and I felt like, yes, Christianity is true. And so the questions that I had of, hey, is it Islam? Is it, Mormon? Is it Buddhism? What is it? Finally, I had these questions answered. And the thing is this, and I want to encourage you, is this: sometimes some people make a decision to not make a decision until they get all the answers. That doesn't work ever in life. You're never, ever going to get all the answers to everything. Who understands everything about a computer before you start using it? But what is important is that you know enough about it. And for me, I needed to know that at least there was some proof in Christianity. As a little side note, for example, the Book of Mormon talks about certain things, and there was millions of elephants. To this day, the Smithsonian Institute has not found any discoveries of elephants on the southern hemisphere. Now, the Book of Mormon says that some of these things existed. It talks about tomatoes and certain things that we know didn't come over until the Europeans brought these things over. So there's a lot of things that actually point to the fact, I believe, that the Book of Mormon is not based on truth and history. But when you look at the Bible, when you look at the Old Testament and in historical things, it lines up with world history books. Things that happened, the Medo-Persians, the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, all these things, the Bible was written during that time, and there's a lot of proof of those things. So anyways, I knew enough to say, I don't have all the answers, but what I need to know, I know now. And thankfully, because not just truth, but also because an experiential encounter that I had with the Lord, I says, you know what? I can believe this. I can believe that it is the God of Christianity. And if I'm going to give my life to ministry for a God, I believe that I can do it for this God. Because I believe that He is the truth. And everything that He says in the Word, I believe it. And so that was one of my journeys. That was, again, another about a year journey that I had questions. I just wanted to know the truth. And because I got those answers now, I can put my reliance on the Bible. And I thank God for it, because there have been times, in the flesh, sometimes we want to justify some things that we know is wrong. But when you know that truth is truth, that right is right, that wrong is wrong, it changes things. It changes your life. Now all of a sudden, hey, you want to start going down that slippery slope of lusting over girls, stuff like that. No, this is not a good path to go on. And I need to live my life in accordance with what is truth and what is right. And so that was part of the journey, again, in my life that I had.